Do you ever feel kind of overwhelmed with your day-to-day life? Or maybe you feel less content about it. Maybe you feel uninspired by it. Sometimes it feels like it's just a hamster wheel and you're living the same day again and again and again. You can't remember when it started and you can't see it ending. What you might be in need of is a program switch. And it's really interesting when you really think about the fact that our lives and our bodies and our minds are programmable. And we are essentially just like an Excel graph. Hello and welcome back to the Kalopsia podcast. I'm your host, Sydney, and I'm so thankful that you guys came and clicked on this week's episode, and I'm happy to have you. Happy Sunday. I am recording this day of, so I apologize for the delayed, release, but I am thankful for your guys' patience with me. I'm back with another episode. Now let's get back into it. It's easy to look around and think, I am so overwhelmed, or I'm so underwhelmed with my life. It feels like I'm just living the same thing again and again. And I feel like that was definitely my experience. I was working in the same coffee shop prior to these past couple jobs I had for like 4 years. And I felt so kind of stuck there. I was very comfortable there. I felt comfortable with all the people I was working with. I was comfortable with the environment. I was comfortable with the tasks. And it wasn't that it was the worst situation to be in, but I was really just feeling like, wow, I am so underwhelmed with life. I feel so uninspired. I've been doing the same thing for so long. And eventually I was like, okay, I'm going to break out of this loop. I'm going to break out of this and I'm going to do something unexpected. And this is where the programming comes into play. When you think about your life, when you think about your perception of your day-to-day life, your life and your view on life is completely shaped around the inputs that you put into it. How much sleep did you get that day? That will impact your mood. That will impact the way that you look around. How much time you spend alone, how much time you spend around others, that will also impact the way that you perceive your day, perceive your week. How are you eating? What nutrition are you doing? That's going to affect your perception of your week. All of these inputs and all of these activities that we choose to kind of play on our sim, if you will, imagine that you are a sim. That will affect the way that the sim feels. That will affect the way that you feel and the way that you perceive your day-to-day life and the way that you perceive your life in general. Now, what happens when that sim is unhappy? What happens when we find ourselves in situations in which we are underwhelmed? We are uninspired. We are almost cathartic. Is that the right word? We need to change the program. And I want to bring in an example from my class because we've been using this platform called CyberRat, right? And so instead of going into a real lab because I'm doing my degree online, we basically train and have these laboratory experiments on a computer, right? And so with this computer, we're training it, we're training the rats, we're training the mice, if you will, and I've named mine the Winx Club. So the other day I was training Stella, right? And previously she had been trained on a fixed interval schedule of reinforcement, right? So a specific amount of time that occurs every single time she will get that reinforcement. Then we shaped her differently and then we placed that behavior on extinction, right? Within the span of 8 sessions, we got that behavior to completely be eradicated. Then we decided that she needed to build a whole new behavior. We wanted to, instead of her bar pressing or pressing this bar to get the reinforcement, instead we had Stella, spin in a tight left circle, and that's how she got her reinforcement, right? So we started out with a behavior, we ran that program, we trained her to be able to tolerate this. Then we placed that behavior on extinction, which means that she was not allowed to do it anymore. Basically, no reinforcement was provided every time that she did that behavior. And then we shaped a completely new behavior. What does this kind of sound like? What does this kind of program switch sound like? This can look like maybe you are someone who loves to order out. You love food, you love culinary delights, and you love to eat out, but you're finding, okay, this is actually costing me a lot of money that I could be spending in other areas of my life. Maybe I could be spending this money investing in a class for myself that I need for my career, or maybe I can use that money and put it towards my savings so that I can save up for that car. Maybe I could use that money elsewhere. What we need to do then is place that behavior on extinction, and then maybe we can shape a new pattern of, okay, instead of doing this, I'm going to go and save this way. Instead of doing this, I'm going to go and behave in this way. So we, like these rats, like these mice, are malleable. We can program ourselves into different streams of behaviors. And that is where the switching of the program and unlocking our own power on our day-to-day life really lies. How is your program being a disservice to you? How can it be of service to you? Now, the other example that I wanted to draw from class is that when I was doing some Excel graphs, which I've developed a kind of good relationship with my girl Excel, it was very complicated for a decade, but we've reached a new front. We're becoming friends now. And the other day I'm making an Excel graph, and I put it in and whatever, and then the instructions say, okay, let's switch the data. Let's change this data. Or I had to make a second graph, and I was like, you know what? Let me just plug in different data, but use that very same graph. Now I want you to think of that graph, that initial graph, as you. You know, you are the graph. Maybe the line looks in this way. You know, maybe it's plateaued, and then it's just, imagine a graph. Imagine a line graph, right? And then you were running this program. The program can be, you know, I'm gonna have 6 hours of sleep a night. You know, that's my program. I'm gonna have I'm gonna have 1.5 meals a day, right? That's also in the program. I'm going to spend 6 hours on my phone after work. That's also in the program. And that's my graph. You know, that's my initial graph. Happiness level is at a 4 out of 10, right? So you are the graph, right? Your happiness level is at a 4 out of 10 because of the limited amount of sleep, the high amount of screen time, and the poor nutrition, and you're not getting enough food. You're not getting enough kcals, right? So how do we switch that graph? How do we get that chart, that graph to hit maybe an 8 out of 10, right? What you can do in Excel, right? We're going back to the Excel metaphor. What you can do is just plug in new numbers. You don't even have to change the graph. You don't have to toss the graph and make a whole new graph. You don't have to create from scratch a whole new, you know, Excel sheet and a whole new graph. You don't need to throw the you out. You don't need to change anything about you. All you need to do is change the program. All you need to do is change those numbers. So maybe instead of getting the 6 hours of sleep, you bump it up to an 8 hours of sleep. Maybe instead of the 1.5 meals a day, you decide to meal prep, get yourself to be able to hit those 3 meals a day, if that works for you. Everybody's body is different. Then maybe you meal prep and you get yourself, okay, I'm going to have those 3 meals a day. Then it's like, okay, I'm spending 6 hours on my phone after work. How can I switch this out? Maybe I can grab a book instead. Maybe spend 2 of those hours reading. Maybe I spend 2 of those hours meal prepping so that I have those 3 meals a day for the next time. You try out the program. And the thing about this program, you can switch out the numbers. You can try out different things. If this formula doesn't work for you, you try a new formula. If this other formula doesn't work for you, you try a new formula. We forget how malleable we are. And I think it took the rats for me to realize that. I'm training this rat and I'm saying, okay, I want you to do so and so. I want you to do this. The rat does it. We put it on a schedule of reinforcement. If you think about yourself, you know, going back to the ordering food example, right? That reinforcement, that's getting that food. Every single time you order, you're getting that food. It's going to be amazing. You see it. You've taste it and it's amazing. Maybe the punisher of having to pay is not strong enough to take you off course and stop ordering, but maybe instead you track how much money you are spending. Every single time you place an order, you add it to the tally. Seeing that number climb within the month, seeing how much damage you're actually doing, that can be your punisher. Now maybe you switch that behavior out. You're like, okay, maybe this isn't as good for me as I really think it is. Maybe this is actually kind of detrimental and I thought it was fine, but maybe now that I'm seeing all of the numbers adding up and I'm seeing my savings dwindle, right? Maybe seeing that will act as your punisher. Then we can see what new behavior to shape. Maybe we give ourselves a star when we are looking at our savings and whether it reaches a certain level every single month. Maybe we give ourselves a little boost for that. Maybe the reinforcement can be ordering that one meal amount, that one ordering out, takeout order Once you hit a certain goal, there's ways for us to shape our expectations, ways for us to shape our behaviors. And we forget that. We forget how much power there is in programming. Now, the elephant in the room here is we work 9 to 5s. Now I'm one of you guys. I'm a 9 to 5er. I'm a 40-hour weeker. And I feel like it has opened up my perspective as well, just about, a lot of the things that I used to do with my journaling and my morning routine. That is not as conducive, or this morning routine, this work schedule is not as conducive to that lifestyle as it was when I was only working 25 hours a week at my previous job. Now, the thing here that we need to do, or the elephant in the room here, is that being able to switch that program, being able to switch your life around, being able to shape these new behaviors, put those others on extinction, is going to be your discipline. It's going to be how determined you are to make that work. And that can only come from you. You cannot say, okay, I want to do this, and I'm sick of this, but, I want to switch my life around, but then you're not going to do anything. You're not going to take any steps. You're still at the 1.5 meals a week. You're still coming home and going on your phone for 6 hours, and then staying up too late, and then having to wake up in the morning, and you're exhausted, and you feel unaccomplished and uninspired. You need to hold yourself accountable. That's the only way that this will work. But already knowing how malleable we are, and how based on the inputs that you put that will change your perception, all of a sudden you're at 8 hours of sleep a day, you're at 3 meals a day, and then you are at, let's say, 2 hours of phone screen time, 2 hours of meal prep time, and 2 hours of reading time at night when you come home. That already might boost your level up to 6. Some people, it might boost them up to 9. Some people might boost them up to 7, on the happiness scale. These are all example numbers, but all of this also reminds me of a podcast episode. I think you can call it a podcast or a YouTube, I guess, but it's this entrepreneur and investor. Her name is Layla Harmazi, I believe. Yeah, Layla Harmazi. And I was just watching one of her YouTube videos, and I believe it was the 6 things that she does that allows her to kind of, I think it was her 6 steps to success or something. It had to do with business, but I stopped at the first one because I thought, oh my gosh, this actually really applies to what I wanted to talk about today. And so I have yet to continue to watch it, but I thought it would be really great to mention this idea, which is that she advises, when it comes to the business realm, which will tie it back, to really push out your ideas and your pitches really quickly. A lot of the time in business, what happens is, I believe, right? I'm not an expert in the field, but what happens with entrepreneurs, they'll have an idea, they'll say, do you think this could work? Do you think this could work? You go to your investors, you go to your friends, you do a lot of questionnaires. You're like, okay, can this really work? Can this really work? And even in my entrepreneurship class, they had so much emphasis on, market research, which is very, very important, of course. But what she really emphasizes is how fast, production, or not even full production of a product, just like having that mock product, just having an idea, just being able to push it out before, rather than continuing to ask questions and get more opinions and get more and more opinions, and then you get delayed. That all of that time that you spend on each potential pitch, on each potential product, is setting you back in time when it comes to how much you could have achieved had you already gotten that market research because of this mock product. I think I explained that in a very convoluted way, but essentially she terms it this way: fast feedback equals fast learning. And so when you take the example of the business sector, right? Say I want to launch an app, and I'm thinking to myself, oh wow, should I do this app? Should I really do this app? Oh, what are the others doing? Maybe I should do it this way. Maybe I'll go and have a brunch call, with someone soon. Maybe I'll ask them a little bit more about it, learn more about the history, about the sector of the app. She advises, start the app. Just create an app, maybe a mock app. It's not up to par. It's not the best that it could be. It's a rough draft. It's a rough draft. Push that out. See how people receive to it, or are receptive to it. She also gave the example of one time I think she launched a website and it had a product in it. She had no product. She just launch the product, see how many people are going to click on this, how many people are just going to click on it, how many people are going to engage with it. That'll just give me an idea of, okay, is this something I should pursue a little bit deeper? Fast feedback, fast learning. The sooner that you can get a yes or a no, this is what it was. The sooner that you can get a yes or a no, the sooner you'll be able to pivot or grow and work out from there. But I think that this kind of mentality is super, super interesting, even when it comes to our self-programming, when it comes to our, controlling of our little sim bots, right? When it comes to these programs, these numbers that you're going to plug in and the graph will change automatically, right? You can keep the graph, you just plug in different numbers, you keep yourself the way that you are with everything around you, but just plug in different numbers. That will also, it's also very beneficial to use her little system, fast feedback, fast learning. Like I said, maybe 8 hours works for one person, maybe 6 works for another. Maybe 2 meals works for one person, maybe 4 meals works for another. Maybe 3 workout days a week works for one person, but maybe another person wants, 6. So every number that you plug in will be unique to you. And the faster that you're able to implement it, the faster you'll be able to learn what might work for you. And so for me, this past week, I was, I'm thinking, I really am not going to be able to do my journaling. I just started a new job basically last week. And I always do my morning pages first thing in the morning. I come into this room, I sit in this seat, and the sun streams in, and it's super good for your circadian rhythm to get sunlight UV rays first thing in the morning. It's a part of my ritual. I'm obsessed with it. I love it. Now I'm thinking, okay, now I have to be up at 4:45 in the morning in order to commute to my work that starts at 7 o'clock, right? So that's a solid block of time that I'm losing into my commute and getting ready to leave. I'm like, okay, I don't really want to drop off my entire routine altogether just for the sake of this commute. Maybe for this 1 week, I'm going to try out doing the journaling on the train. Maybe I'm going to try out doing my journaling at the train station, not on the train. Maybe I'll try out doing it on the, doing it like right here before I leave, maybe a 1 page instead of the 2 to 3, right? I tweaked it throughout the week. I see what works. I see what doesn't. Maybe I don't like the train because it shakes too much. Maybe I'll try to get to the platform a little bit sooner. Maybe I can do it there. Maybe I can do it here but then I might miss the bus. So maybe I'll do it on the platform. When the train comes, I will hop right on and then I can just keep going from there. You tweak it. And the faster that you implement it, the faster you'll be able to learn, okay, this works for me. This doesn't work for me. This made me feel good. This didn't make me feel too good. We can tweak it. We are malleable. We adapt. And it's so interesting when it comes to this like business advice, but it applies to us too. Now, last night I was watching this show, Anne with an E, based on the movie Anne with an E of Green Gables, Anne of Green Gables, I believe the original movie is, but it's set in the 1890s, and there's this one character, Anne, with an E, of course, and she's this very young girl who is so excited with the world, and she's an orphan, and she's so excited with the prospect of getting to be adopted, and the basis of her character is kind of her curiosity and her continued, plethora of imagination and how active her mind is. And I was sitting there watching and I was like, I am not nearly imaginative enough, right? And when it comes to these programmings and when it comes to these tweaks, a lot of the time it's like, what am I supposed to tweak? I don't know what I'm supposed to tweak. Maybe I feel not great, but it's good enough. Maybe that's fine. Maybe it's good enough. Like, maybe I'll just stick this out for another, 5 to 6 years. I meant 5 to 10, but 5 to 6 years works as well. Maybe I'll just stick this out. It's good enough. It's not horrible, but it's not great. The thing with imagination is that it's not exactly something that you can just call upon. I feel like Anne with an E also showed me that some people might be more naturally inclined to be more imaginative. But I think that's something that we can all do is be super receptive to what other people are doing. So when it comes to social media, it's a horrible place. It's stressful. It's a lot of information and it's antagonistic, and it's just a lot of information constantly. Dopamine is shot, right? Dopamine system. However, I think that it is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful tool for manifestation, for just being exposed to different streams of living. You can witness someone who might be living in California and their day-to-day might look different just because of that location. Maybe you're able to look at someone's day in the life who works in a field, maybe that's similar to yours, but slightly different. And maybe that day-to-day looks really great to you. We can use our social media. We can use our community, as inspiration. Just be receptive to it. You never know when a new tool might pop up. The day I discovered the morning pages, wow, life changed. But I would have never discovered it had I not just been receptive to the idea of it. And I think that's kind of the lesson here. When it comes to our programming, when it comes to these tweaks and little pivots that we can make in our lives that can make all of the difference when it comes to our self-perception and the perception of the world, and thus our contentment with the world, we need to be receptive to tweaks, be receptive to tools that could be available to us. I think that's the biggest thing that I've had to learn as well. I feel like imagining and creating can be so difficult to do when you're coming from an empty well, but being able to receive that, being able to open your eyes and not really necessarily look at other people's lives as jealousy. A lot of the times we can see people living lives that we want and feeling so happy, and a natural reaction that occurs often is jealousy. It's like, oh, I wish I had that. I wish I felt this way. I wish I had these resources. I wish I had these friends. I wish I had that job. And it can be really, really easy to feel that resentment and to feel that jealousy, but it's really amazing that we even have like the ability to look at it and to dream of it and to maybe find our way towards it. Inspiration is a gift, and it's something that can be worked towards. We can work towards things that give us inspiration a lot of the time. And so that's what I recommend that we all do this week. But this week, maybe find a tweak, find something that you can change in your day-to-day life. If you're feeling overtired, what can you change? Something that I did or something that I've seen people do is do something unexpected. Maybe do a commute that you wouldn't normally do. Do something a little bit unexpected just so that your nervous system is like, whoa, something's different. And then it's like, oh, like, let me just like pay a little bit more attention. I feel like we can almost fall into the flow and the natural like redundancy of our lives, especially with the 9-to-5 lifestyle. I feel like it can all feel like you're living the same day and the same week again and again. But I feel like it's kind of halted and stopped and cut off at the knees when you do something just a little bit unexpected. And the other week I got a red light therapy panel. That was rogue. I've been thinking about it for at least 6 months. And I see everybody with a mask, but I'm like, $300, I'm not spending that. And I got this $40 just like red light panel. Amazing. And all of a sudden my body's like, wait, I can't wait to like go to do my wind down at home. And I'm like, wait, now that I have to wake up at 5:45 in the morning, like I can wake up my circadian rhythm with this light as well now. And so it's just something more fun, and it's a new, quirk in my programming, and it's just so much fun. And it's also helping my circadian rhythm, and it's helping my sleep, and it's helping my skin, and it's just a lot of fun. And it's something different. So that's what I recommend to you guys. Try something new. How can you switch out the program? How can we help our Sims? We are Sims. And you don't need to throw out the graph. We can just plug in new data. And I think that's what I really learned from Excel this week. It's what I learned from Excel, which is very interesting. Didn't think those words would ever come out of my mouth. I used to hate that platform, but I'm starting to understand her. Nothing is hard. We just need time. Okay, and with that, I'm so thankful that you guys came and clicked on this week's episode. Do not forget to send in your slices of Kalopsia onto the Instagram. I want it to be like a little photo dump of just what we have to be grateful for in our day-to-day lives. Any slice of beauty, any slice of fun. Just send it over and let me know if you don't mind me tagging you. And you can also reach out at kalopsiapod, KALOPSIAPOD on Instagram, TikTok, and then it's at Sydney Jotita, SYDNEYDJOTITA on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube or you might also be watching this today. So with that, I leave you. I'll love you and leave you. I am looking forward to seeing you next Sunday.